Naturalist Aldo Leopold described the descending flocks of Sandhill cranes in his 1949 essay, Marshland Elegy. He wrote, "High horns, low horns, silence, and finally a pandemonium of trumpets, rattles, croaks, and cries that almost shakes the bog with its nearness, but without yet disclosing whence it comes. At last a glint of sun reveals the approaching of a great echelon of birds. On motionless wings they emerge from the lifting mists, sweep a final arc of sky, and settle on clangorous descending spirals to their feeding grounds. A new day has begun on the Crane Marsh." In that essay, Leopold is describing the Sandhill crane's breeding grounds in Wisconsin. Here, these are the wintering grounds of the Sandhill cranes in the American Southwest. This particular location is Whitewater Draw, an area about 2 hours south of Tucson in Arizona. Whitewater Draw is owned by the Arizona Fish and Game Department. It was private ranch land prior, and they purchased it in 1997. Beginning in November, Sandhill cranes arrive from all over North America. They form huge flocks and settle in the Southwest. Up to 20,000 cranes can use this one spot. During the day, they head out to the fields and the surrounding areas to feed on corn and grain, and at night they return here to Whitewater Draw to the safety of the water. Long migrations and huge congregations aren't the only interesting things about Sandhill cranes. These birds have surprisingly long lifespans. In fact, they may not even breed before they're 7 years old. They mate for life, and sometimes life means 20 plus years. The oldest recording Sandhill crane was 37 years old. That bird was first banded in 1982 in Florida, and it was found dead in Wisconsin in 2019. They seem intelligent. They interact with one another in fascinating ways. It's hard to know how they choose to take off and land in such large numbers and how they coordinate their flight through the sky. As you stand there watching them, you get the distinct feeling that some of them are watching you back. In fact, you can see them doing it. They also interact with each other on the ground, flapping, fighting, dancing, making all sorts of vocalizations. A large number of water birds and other animals and birds call Whitewater Draw home as well. There are ibis, there's types of grebes, teals, all sorts of ducks, pintails, and of course many quail and raptors and all the other birds you frequently encounter in the desert. The cranes are very impressive though, and draw your attention immediately, not only for their numbers, but also for their size. The birds are almost 4 feet tall, and their wingspan is quite large as well, up to 6.5 feet actually. With their red face masks and long beaks, they have a certain pterodactyl quality. Sandhill cranes have been migrating across North America for millions of years. In fact, the earliest found crane fossil in Florida is 2.5 million years old. However, our activity has changed their migratory patterns somewhat. When this area of southern Arizona was turned into industrial farms in the mid-20th century and loose grain became more available, the number of cranes that migrated to this site dramatically increased. One of the more troubling things we observed on our visit to Whitewater Draw was the crane's reaction to distant shotgun blasts. Periodically, we would hear someone shooting in a nearby field or ranch or wherever, and all the thousands of birds would fall quiet. Then, after a few seconds, one would broach the silence and they would return to their loud conversation, but they were clearly clued in to the sound of the guns. Watching the thousands of cranes circle and land against the backdrop of the Chiricahua Mountains It's easy to imagine oneself in a Pleistocene landscape. That is, of course, until one of those darn shotgun blasts go off and the thousands of voices fall silent. Luckily, they don't stay silent for long. I guess I gave the beginning of this video to Aldo Leopold, so I'll let him have the ending too. Again, in Marshland Elegy, he writes, "Our ability to perceive quality in nature begins, as in art, with the pretty. It expands through successive stages of the beautiful to values as yet uncaptured by language. The quality of cranes lies, I think, in this higher gamut, as yet beyond the reach of words."